The Zagreb rocket attacks were a series of 2 artillery attacks conducted by Serb armed forces that fired surface-to-surface missiles on the Croatian capital of Zagreb during the Croatian War of Independence. The attack killed 7 and wounded over 200 Croatian civilians and was carried out on the 2nd of May and the 3rd of May 1995 as retaliation for the Croatian army's offensive in Operation Flash. The rocket attacks deliberately targeted civilian locations. Zagreb was the largest of several cities hit by the attack. It was the only instance in the entire war in Croatia that cluster bombs were used in combat. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia characterized the attack as a crime against humanity and convicted Croatian Serb leader Milan Martic of ordering the attack. Introduction. During the early part of the war, the Croatian capital Zagreb was spared from devastation, as it was far from the front lines. Serb General Milan Seleketić announced to the press on 24 March 1995, more than a month prior to the attack, that should a Croatian offensive be launched, he expected to respond by targeting the weak points, that is, the parks of the Croatian cities, and added, "We know who to the people in the parks are civilians." In May 1995, Croatia launched Operation Flash, which recaptured the area of western Slavonia that had been under Serb control since 1991. In neighboring Bosnia, the leader of the Republika Srpska at Radovan Karadzic threatened to send help to the Serbs in Croatia. Following the rapid collapse of the Serb defense in the area, Serb leader Milan Martic ordered Serb rocket artillery units in the self-proclaimed Republic of Serbian Krajina to fire missiles on the capital of Zagreb. Karlovac and Sisak were also subjected to retaliatory attacks. The Yugoslav-produced Orkan 262mm multiple rocket launches fires M87 non-guided missiles. The ones fired against Zagreb were armed with aviation cluster bomb warheads, each of which contains 288 bomblets which are ejected at a height of 1,000 meters above the target area. Upon impact, each bomblet explodes and releases 420 pellets, the lethal range of each of which is 10 meters. This means that each rocket releases around 120,000 of these pellets, which have been characterized as designed specifically to kill or maim local infantry. Strikes. On the 1st of May, a meeting was held between leaders of the RSK. Although negotiations were ongoing, Martic and Seleketić were not in favor of a peaceful solution. At 1 p.m. on the 1st of May, Milan Seleketić ordered, with Martic present, an artillery barrage on Sisak which was opened at 5 p.m. that day. On the same day, an M87 Orkan rocket artillery unit from Nin was redeployed to Vojnić. The first attack occurred on the 2nd of May, at 10:25 in the morning. At the time, many civilians were in the streets. The targets hit included the Strosmayer Promenade, Petrinjska Street and Vlaška Street where a tram full of passengers was hit. The classical gymnasium in Zagreb located in the city centre was also hit, as were Pliso and its airport. In total, 5 civilians were killed and 146 injured. The second attack occurred the following day at 12:10 in the afternoon. The Children's Hospital in Klisava Street, the Croatian National Theatre building and the courthouse at Nikola Subic Zrinski Square were among those hit. 2 civilians were killed that day and 48 injured, which were less than the day before due to many people avoiding public areas following the first attack. Most of the missiles targeted the city center and surrounding streets, which were most likely to be filled with civilians in the morning. In total, 7 people were killed and about 200 injured from these attacks. Aftermath. On the 3rd of May, Slobodan Milosevic, president of Serbia at the time, instructed Yugoslav Army Chief of the General Staff Momčilo Perisic to call Selektic and forbid further strikes against Zagreb. After the 4th of May and the end of Operation Flash, United Nations Special Envoy Yasushi Akashi met with Martic and condemned him for the attack. Martic then threatened to resume the attacks and spoke of massive rocket attacks on Zagreb which would leave 100,000 people dead. On the 10th of October 2013, a cluster bomb which failed to detonate was discovered on the roof of the Klaiševa Children's Hospital, 18 years after the attacks. After surgery on several patients had been completed, the Zagreb police bomb disposal squad was given clearance to detonate the ordnance. No one was injured in the detonation. In May 2013, City Mayor Mr. Milan Bandic opened a museum in Petrosava Street, dedicated to the tragedy. War crimes charges by the ICTY. Milan Martic, President of the Republic of Serbia and Croatian and Supreme Commander of the SVK, ordered the shelling of 3 Croatian cities, Zagreb, Sisak and Karlovac, on the 2nd of May 1995, at approximately 10:25 hours, on the order of Milan Martic. General Selektic of the SVK ordered his subordinates to fire an Orkan multiple-barrel rocket launcher fitted with cluster bomb warheads from the area of Petrova Gora into the central part of Zagreb and the airport. These rockets impacted in several locations within the central commercial district of Zagreb, primarily the areas of Stara Vlaška Street, Josip Jurić Strossmayer Square and Križanićeva Street. During this unlawful attack, at least 5 civilians were killed and at least 146 civilians wounded. On the 3rd of May 1995, at approximately 12:10 hours on the orders of Milan Martic, the Orkan multiple-barrel rocket launcher fitted with cluster bomb warheads was once again fired from the area of Petrova Gora into the center of Zagreb. Rockets impacted in the areas of Klaiševa Street, Međuljuseva Street, Ilića Street and near the Croatian National Theatre. This unlawful attack caused the deaths of 2 civilians and wounded 48 others. Immediately following the attacks, Martic appeared on Serb television and publicly boasted about ordering the attacks. This video was later used against him during his trial at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia after he was indicted for war crimes. The attack on Zagreb was one of the main points of the indictment against him, to which he confessed, but claimed it was a legitimate action against the enemy. On the 12th of June 2007, he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Perisic was also indicted for his role in the rocket attack. He was sentenced to 27 years in prison because the judges ruled that he had effective control over the SVK commanders since he issued orders to them, and initiated disciplinary proceedings against them. Therefore he was responsible for the failure to punish those who launched the rockets on Zagreb. However, in February 2013, Perisic was released upon appealing his conviction. In the mid-morning of the 2nd of May 1995, without warning, several Orkan rockets struck locations in Zagreb, including the main square, several shopping streets, a school, the village of Pliso near Zagreb Airport and the airport itself. 5 persons, all civilians, were killed in these attacks and at least 160 persons were severely injured. Many of these victims still today suffer from their injuries. At midday the following day, the 3rd of May 1995, Zagreb was again shelled by Orkan rockets. The areas hit were the Croatian National Theatre at Marshal Tito Square, a children's hospital, as well as another square. These attacks claimed 2 lives and injured 54 people. Many of these victims also still suffer from their injuries.